Hi, I'm Pawan Mulukutla, and today with me is Claudia Adriazola-Steil, Global Director for Road Safety Program at WRI. In conversation today, we will be discussing about how to make our streets safer for all users. Hi, Claudia, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Pawan.
It's always a pleasure to have you in India, and I know you have been here, and welcome to Bengaluru. And we are super excited to be doing this Namaraste, which is basically how do we actually design our streets for all users. And a lot of it has drawn inspirations of the work you started off almost 15, 20 years back, Claudia. And I always wondered what inspired you actually.
Thank you so much, Pawan. India is my happy place. So I'm very, very happy to be here. And thank you for taking this time to talk to me. Safety inspired me because it's about life. It's about making the people happy. It's about giving people quality of life. And if we talk about more practical terms, it's about economic development. So that is what inspires me to work on safety. It has a very strong linkage with so many areas, from public health to climate change to economic development. So I think it's a link that can enable people to be able to be more sustainable and definitely happy.
Awesome. I've also, we always follow this safer by design. Why do you think, where did this whole thinking evolve and how did it really happen? And why do you think safer by design is so important to the work we do?
I think it's related to system design. So many years ago, when people were working around road safety, what they were focusing is on the user of the road, right? So you had a lot of education and communication campaigns, which is important, but at some point, particularly researchers from the Netherlands and Sweden realized, we have done everything around education and communication enforcement, and the numbers continue being very high. So they started thinking, what if we look at the system per se? Back in the 70s, there was an oil embargo, right? And the oil embargo had many decision makers focusing on how to reduce the use of gas. Yeah? And to reduce the use of gas, they had to reduce speeds. When the embargo passed, they went back to the numbers and surprise, surprise, they noticed they had less people killed on the roads. And so they started thinking, this is not just how the person behaves, but there is something in the system that can also save lives. So they started really thinking about how you design your streets. And we can demonstrate if you have streets that are 100, 200 meters long versus streets that have 500, 800 meters long. If you have very wide intersections instead of tight intersections, you will have more fatalities. Why? Because speeds tend to be higher. And we humans are not designed, our bodies are not designed to absorb kinetic energy.
I remember always seeing this one image that you always have shown, which shows, two sides of face of a human being, where one is if the speeds are, I think, 25 miles per hour or 35, then the probability of in getting, dying is much less, while when you're at a higher speeds, it's sure. Can you really talk about that? It's actually always blown me away why speed matters so much.
Speed does matter, power. And the reason, as I said, is because how our bodies are designed.
Oh, yeah.
We are not designed to absorb kinetic energy. So only at 30 kilometers per hour, 10% of people hit at that very low speed will be killed. If you have a kid, a person with some illness or an elderly person, that person will be killed. If that goes to 50 kilometers per hour, then the probabilities of being killed are 80%. Now, the problem here is that our brains have not evolved to be around very high speeds. So, I tell you and our audience here, don't try it at home. Just think about it. But if I will ask you, please go to that first floor and jump from there, will you do it?
Will not unless you push me.
Very good. And you know why? Because our brains have been around altitude and we have a very quick perception of risk around altitude. But the same doesn't happen with the speed. So at 30 kilometers per hour is the same as jumping from the first floor. So you will not do it. But if I tell you, let's go for a walk, it's a little hot today, but let's go for a walk. The cars will be going at much higher than 30 kilometers per hour. And we will be very happy talking and engaging in our conversation and not feeling any risk, even though the risk is there.
Correct.
So speed is a very difficult issue because people don't really have an accurate assessment of how dangerous it is.
So, this is brilliant on how do we make people understand about speeds, right? When cities are designing, the engineers in all these municipalities across the globe. So, what have been some of the learnings from working over the last 15 years across multiple geographies? Have decision makers been receptive to this kind of a thinking?
Yes, it hasn't been automatically,
Mm-hmm.
but we have been able to make really good progress in this agenda. So I can give you a couple of examples. In Addis Ababa, the government installed more than 1,000 speed humps around the city because they really wanted to slow down traffic. And the city is already built in a way, so you cannot rebuild it again and have blocks that are shorter. But you can provide some speed reduction. With great results, we have seen 25% reduction in fatalities.
Wow.
And the same has happened in the city of Bogota in Colombia, where across 4 different administrations, the city has been working on speed management. So they have a speed management plan. They started by reducing the speed in the most dangerous road in the city called Avenida Boyacá, where they had 10% of all the fatalities happen in that corridor. And then slowly they build up to 5 arterial roads and then to 10 and then citywide.
Wow.
So it's happening and it's not an easy job because
No, even in Bangalore, you are aware of the Suraksha 75 Junctions program, how it has evolved, and how the municipal corporation is taking the ownership to make the streets safer. And I completely understand that local governments are warming up to this idea, and they understand that we need to make our cities safer by design, so that it also, I feel it's related to a little bit of a behavioral shift. Do you feel that?
totally. And since Russia 75 here in Bengaluru has been an example for the whole world, right? How decision makers finally decide, yes, the streets are for us, namaraste,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's so important to see that at the highest level of decision making, life becomes a priority and protecting the life. So I see change happening here and very steadily with engagement from decision makers, but also from the community, which is what we need.
Do you see how important is the role of community in all these conversations?
Critical. Very important because they are the ones that are going to protect all these changes. right? And that happens. I was just mentioned to you before this conversation that in Bogota they inaugurated a new road, 4 lanes per direction, and only in the first months they already had several people killed. So they had to go and put the speed humps in this very, very new road. At the beginning, it was total opposition. Nobody wanted in a new road to have speed humps. Well, now guess what? The demand for the speed humps is off the roof. Everybody wants to have now the speed humps because we people don't want to be killed. We don't want to be hurt.
Hmm.
So the community will tell you, we want to be protected.
Awesome. So where do you see this conversation of safety heading? I mean, what is your vision? Like, how do you see this evolve in the next decade?
I think it will intertwine a lot with the work that we are doing in climate. Our cities are changing rapidly. We see that heat is a problem. In some places is flooding. In some places are fires, killer storms. And when we rebuild the city or when we put measurements to make it better for everyone and to protect it from these changes, we cannot make an investment to adapt and mitigate and leave road safety on the side. It has to be integrated. So we are talking now about city safer by design for mitigation and adaptation.
Wow.
So we can really intertwine these agendas and have a lot more benefits coming out of it.
Absolutely. No, this is brilliant to hear like how the whole climate agenda and the safety is coming together to address and how do we improve the quality of life. Totally agree with you. We are seeing extreme weather conditions, and then the question becomes how do you create a resilient infrastructure that is um, available for all users in a city, right? So I think that is very, very important. And any thoughts on Namaraste itself? This is we are doing the second edition next week, and you were at the inaugural of the first edition. What is? How do you feel about it?
I feel extremely happy. Yes, being part of the first Namaraste was impressive. To see the commissioner coming, the chief engineer coming, all the engineers there on a Saturday, in the community engaging, it was really safety in action. It was love in action, right? Like everybody coming to say, how can we make it better?
Hmm.
And that is what I love about Namaraste, the fact that we are understanding that our streets are not just pieces of concrete, they are the ones that connect all of us. And so I love, first of all, the name Namaraste, right? And to know that we can tackle this very difficult issue together. We need to make tough decisions here, but will be for the better. And so I find that Namarust is precisely that.
No, I really love what you say, right? Like, uh, we can tackle this and tough problems. And that I feel is clearly the way forward when we're talking about how do we really make our streets safer for all age groups, right? It always says that you can, as city is safe when children and senior citizens find it safe, right? That's one way to also really look at. But thank you so much, Claudia, for inspiring us. I've personally drawn so much inspiration from your work and stuff that we do in India. And this is, I'm looking forward. How do we really even take the kind of work and facilitate this cross learning that we were discussing between different cities across the globe to create a safer place for future generations and, of course, for current generation as well. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.